I mean, there's definitely a lot of like value to what we preach with buyer enablement, guiding people through the buying process. But if you have someone that's like you said, a seasoned person who's done it, like they come to that meeting ready to go. Looks like we're on in 5.
Right. All right.
Cool. Awesome. I assume we're having some folks trickle in from the last track. I'm gonna give a couple more seconds here for other folks to trickle in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Cool. Seeing that number grow. All right. Before I introduce our speaker, I'm just gonna do some of the housekeeping items that you've probably already seen before, but we're gonna run through them real quick here again. While I'm doing that, feel free to go into the chat section and specific to our session, throw in where you're calling in from or logging in from today and your title. It's always cool to see kind of the breadth of where. Appreciate that, Breeze, calling in from the Midwest as well. I'm in Traverse City, Michigan. Well, cool. Let's do this. So first things first, thank you so much for joining us for the many uses of technical wins, how we nailed revenue forecasting within a 5% variance with Aaron Moore. My name is Kyle Bourne. I'm an account executive here at Consensus, and I will be your moderator for today's session. DemoFest is presented by Consensus. Consensus is leading the world into the new era of demo automation. Our platform gets your buyers what they need when they need it. It then multiplies your revenue team's impact with unique insights on those buyers. As a result, you'll see faster close times, larger deals, and higher close rates. You can learn more at goconsensus.com or view the automated micro demo at the link in the Docs tab on the right of your screen. We encourage you to participate in today's session. On the right side of your console, you'll see a few ways to engage with us throughout the session. The chat function that I just called out will allow you to engage with us and chat with us as well as the other attendees in this session. Like I called out, use the session tab if you want to speak or communicate with us here in the session. Throughout the session, you'll see a few polls, or I think just one actually, where we encourage you to participate as your feedback is important to us, and that'll be in the polls tab. And then Aaron will be taking questions from the audience at the end of the session, but we encourage you to ask questions at any time through the Q&A box here. If at any time you're having technical difficulties, you can head to the gear on the bottom of your screen, which is right here. And here you'll see a help document to help troubleshoot common issues. Now we can get to the good stuff. Now I'd like to introduce our speaker, Aaron Moore. Aaron is the head of product at Kanji, and he brings a wealth of experience from over a decade in end user technology. His unique journey includes includes roles on both the vendor and customer sides, giving him a balanced perspective of the industry. Starting as the first sales engineer at Kanji, Aaron has been an instrumental in expanding the team from a solo effort to a robust group of over 20 professionals, now operating on a global scale. His approach in pre-sales is pragmatic and data-driven, always focusing on providing tangible value to customers. Aaron's leadership is marked by a clear commitment to practical solutions and a deep understanding of client needs. And with that, I'll turn the rest of the time over to you, Aaron.
Thanks, Kyle. All right, let's go ahead and share my screen and we can jump right in. All right, great. Thanks for everyone for joining, and obviously thank you, Kyle and Consensus, for putting this DemoFest event on again this year. Last year I was in the audience, and it was a great event. This year is shaping up to be another really great event, and it's awesome to be on the presenter side this time. A little bit more about myself before we jump in. Like Kyle mentioned, I'm currently the head of product for Kanji. Before that, though, I spent a combined 5 years at Nike and Raytheon Technologies as a system engineer, specifically doing Apple device fleet management for employee devices and company-owned devices. And then I moved over to Kanji a little over 3 years ago to be their first sort of founding SE, and grew the team from one sales engineer at the time all the way up to 21, a global team, of 21 engineers. And now I've moved on from that role since into the head of product role, and I found some shocking similarities in terms of that role that I'm in now versus the solutions engineering role. Um, Both roles are super focused on customers, hyper focused on the product and making sure that the knowledge of the product and the needs of the customer are met. And then obviously a strong connection back to revenue. And if for some reason your product is not selling, that's on both the product team as well as the revenue team, specifically the pre-sales teams. I would be surprised if more folks don't make the move over from pre-sales into product in the future, just because of so many of the similarities that exist today. It's been a great transition, and who knows, maybe next presentation here at DemoFest next year, I'll talk a little bit more about that transition and about some of the ways that solutions engineering or sales engineering are able to help product and vice versa. All right, let's talk about some session goals. Just as with any good demo, I want to go ahead and set 3 expectations or 3 goals up front. The first is I want to make sure that we leave here today with an accurate deal forecasting model laid out. So I want you to be able to go back and take the things that I'll be talking about here and apply them inside of your organization. Secondly, if you don't already feel like you have a seat at the table, I want to make sure that you have some clear steps to go and secure a seat at the table where strategic revenue conversations happen. And this is, again, applicable to you, even if you are not a sales engineering or solutions engineering leader. And then lastly, I want you to be able to walk away with some new strategies around how you can increase your team's value within your organization. Let's go ahead and just pause for a second, though. I want to do that one poll that Kyle mentioned. So I'll go ahead and I'll stop sharing my screen just for a second. Kyle, if you want to open up that poll for the audience. All right, so the question is, do you currently participate in your company's sales forecasting efforts today? Simple yes or no question. We'll go ahead and we'll just let folks lock in their answers here. Look, it's pretty tied neck and neck here, yes and no. Pretty even. We'll give it a couple more seconds for folks to put their answers in. All right. All right, so pretty split. Looks like a few more of folks in the audience responded no. They do not currently participate in their company's sales forecasting efforts. So helpful poll. I expect that by the end of the time here today, that'll shift. At least that's my hope. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the foundational pieces, though, that you'll need to be able to participate in the sales forecasting activities. Cool. Before we do that, though, I just want to talk a little bit more about increasing your team's value. It's obviously really important to consistently demonstrate your team value and to pioneer new ways to increase the value of your team within your organization, regardless, again, if you're an individual contributor, SC, or an SC leader. Pre-sales teams are some of the most valuable resources in any company, but they're also some of the most expensive and incorrectly utilized. Now, we can't really do too much about the expensive part, nor should we. We are all professionals that have robust and detailed experience in the industry that we're inside. And we're able to bring that to the table and work with sales teams and customers to match solutions to problems. And obviously being compensated for that appropriately is very fair. But what we are able to control is the misutilization part. So all the time I see teams that are focused on small and qualified deals, maybe they're doing a bunch of busy work inside of the CRM. Maybe that's leading to burnout. This is why solutions like Consensus exist, because they exist to get the most value possible out of a pre-sales team. But really, the mixture of an expensive and misutilized team is a dangerous one. And we can't and shouldn't do much about the expensive part, like I mentioned, but we can focus on how the teams are utilized. Not focusing on how to utilize a pre-sales team correctly can quickly cause things to sort of unravel and create scrutiny from leadership about the size of a team and the impact or lack thereof of that team. Something that's especially important, of course, with all the risks going on. Not that we should wait for a layoff to come to maximize our team's value, but it is something that, as specifically leaders, we always are having to think about. The good news is that we're all in pre-sales because we are problem solvers. So we should always be looking for ways to control the things that are inside our control. Specifically, in this case, misutilization and making sure that resources are utilized in the best way possible. And that shouldn't really be hard for us, just because we are so used to finding solutions to problems. Now, when I think about maximizing team value, it doesn't typically mean doing more work. In fact, it means quite the opposite. Typically, what it means is focusing on outcomes, not outputs. So what can you do for the company? What are the outcomes that you can enact in the company, in your organization, versus the things or the tasks that you're going to do in your organization? We should always be thinking about outcome, not output. Secondly, we should always be looking to ruthlessly eliminate busy work. Like I mentioned earlier, sometimes we can be glorified CRM updaters and data entry analysts. That should never be where we find ourselves as a pre-sales team. Thirdly, we should always be investing more effort on fewer things. An example of this, when I was back in solutions engineering world, leading my pre-sales team, is we would every week refocus ourselves on the most strategic and important deals that we were running. And we would not let ourselves be distracted by the smaller deals that maybe were not demanding our attention. And so by focusing on fewer things, the quality of the work that we were doing on those things went up. Next, we should always prioritize work that helps teams cross-departmentally. We can maybe work on one thing that helps us and our team, or that helps one team inside of our organization. But if we can focus on work that helps multiple teams at the same time, we should over-index on that work. And then lastly, we should always be curious and encourage experimentation, encourage failure. Again, being curious is something that's pretty inherent to us as pre-sales folks. So this one shouldn't be hard, but it is something that we should always make sure that we're prioritizing. So just to kind of wrap up this slide, we should always be looking for ways to maximize the work that is already being done, not necessarily creating more work. And that sort of brings us to the whole reason for this conversation. That is the technical win forecasting. It's a really good example of maximizing the work that's already being done. We didn't necessarily start doing anything too different. We didn't start doing lots of new busy work in the CRM. We were able to take a field that we were already updating as a team and use it to help guide the revenue organization. So I'm going to guess that you're most likely using technical wins today, but if not, we'll just do a quick refresher on technical wins. There are a few different ways to track technical wins. If you aren't tracking them today, that's okay, but I highly recommend looking into tracking them, because it is a really critical piece that pre-sales teams are able to contribute to their organization. I have three options here for how to track technical wins or how to define technical wins. There are likely a lot more than just three definitions, but these are the three that I've seen the most. The first is marking a technical win once you determine that your solution meets the needs of the customer. So maybe you're in a discovery call, or you're just working with a prospective buyer to sort of track and write down all of their technical needs. And all 5 of those needs can easily be solved by your solution. So you mark the deal with a technical win. I don't like option number 1 very much, and I think out of the 3, it's probably the one that's used the least. But I have seen organizations do this. Number 2, and this is the one that we follow most closely at Kanji, is we will mark a technical win after a successful evaluation. So after a POC or a POV or a trial is completed, and the prospective buyer comes back to us and validates that our solution meets all of their needs, and that nothing else holds the deal back from a technical standpoint, we mark the technical win. The third option here is also another pretty popular one, which is the solution of choice option. This is essentially just everything from option number 2, except the pre-sales team waits to mark a deal with a technical win until they have determined that the prospective buyer views their solution as the solution of choice, or the solution that they want to go with, barring any uncontrollables like budget or things of that nature. Regardless of which option you pick, including any definitions that aren't listed here, securing a technical win on a deal is the most important part. It's not going to really change anything else that we're going to talk about here today in terms of how to forecast. Really, all that matters is that you are consistent with how you're doing it, and that you're not, oscillating between options 1 through 3. So like I mentioned, we sort of follow option number 2. And again, technical wins here at Kanji and elsewhere, most other places, are based off of very well-defined requirements captured by the SE. When we mark a technical win, we are essentially denoting that nothing is holding a deal back from a technical standpoint. SEs inside of Kanji own the field in our CRM, and are accountable for its accuracy at all times. So if for some reason there's scope creep and a deal no longer has a technical win, we expect the SE to stay on top of that and to go back and mark technical win to no. And then almost everything an SE does in pre-sales revolves around securing the technical win. Now, not all deals get a technical win. That's a conversation for another time. But there are instances where a customer moves forward and we do not have the technical win secured. And that can be really valuable down the line for troubleshooting maybe why a customer churned or is at risk of churning. In the early days of implementing technical wins, there will be lively debates on your team about whether a deal should be marked with a technical win or not. That's great because it creates engagement on the team and healthy debate. So again, it's just another reason why we found technical wins to be so handy and successful within our organization and other organizations. And it's not just the solutions or sales engineering teams that benefit from technical wins. Pretty much everyone else inside of an organization benefits. And come to find out, there are a lot of many uses of technical wins and technical losses if you track those as well. Lots of teams benefit. I have just a couple of teams listed here that benefit from technical wins and how they benefit. Customer success benefits because they're able to track why a customer decided to go with your solution, which can be really helpful for retention efforts later. Executive leadership loves technical wins because it makes their strategic planning easier because they're able to really dig into customers and their mindset and what causes them to move forward with the solution versus choosing not to move forward with the solution. Finance loves them because it allows for crisper deal and headcount forecasting. Marketing really likes them because they're able to understand again why a customer chooses your solution, which can lead to more targeted and effective campaigns. Operations loves technical wins because is able to improve the tracking and the metrics tracking that they do to be able to forecast growth and measure efficiency. Product, folks like myself, we love technical wins because it's able to provide a clearer product development picture, and we're able to better prioritize things to work on in the product. And then lastly, of course, sales loves technical wins because they're able to be better informed about their deals and are able to execute better on their deals as well. We'll get into more of that here in the next slide. So what we found when we started digging into technical win data as we prepared to sort of build out this this proof of concept forecasting model was that there was actually a really high conversion rate for technical wins. So if you're tracking technical wins today, you're probably also tracking conversion rate. We found that of all the deals that got technical wins, 80% of those deals later converted to a closed won deal. Now, obviously, this varied by industry and deal size and company size and all these other things. But across the board, generally speaking, it was around 80%. And when we sort of began to dig into this, we started to track the conversion rate of technical wins a lot more closely. And actually, we started measuring it on a per SE basis, which allowed us to coach certain folks that maybe had a lower conversion rate for their technical wins, because maybe the accuracy or the crispness of them marking the technical win on the deal was not what it should have been. So we discovered that, like I said, the conversion rate on these technical wins were so high, they're around 80%. And that sort of gave us an idea. What if technical wins could lead to a more accurate sales forecast? What if they could be sort of the key indicator for sales forecasting? And our rationale was, if we win approximately 80% of the time when we mark a deal with a technical win, it should likely be the single best indicator of whether we'll win the deal. Better than any other gut feel, any other sales forecast, anything else like that. And within our organization, as with many other organizations, teams, the sales teams were already having quite a bit of difficulty coming up with accurate sales forecasts. And so we took it on as a challenge. So when we think about sales forecasting, there's sort of 4 different buckets. There's what you could consider high accuracy forecasts. So anything that is within 5% accuracy for a specific month or a quarter. And then there is sort of that acceptable variance, which is anywhere from 5 to 10%. Then there is moderate variance, which is 10 to 20%. This is typically where sales teams end up landing on a somewhat general basis and regular basis. And then there is that sort of larger variance, which is anything that is 20% or greater, which is, ask any leadership out there, they're going to say that anything that is that large variance is pretty unacceptable. And so what we said to ourselves is, we said, well, how can we use technical wins to hit that acceptable variance? That was the goal that we set for ourselves. How can we predict within 5 to 10% on a monthly basis of the revenue that will close inside of that month? And we gave ourselves a bonus goal of being able to predict within a 5% variance inside of a quarter, or high accuracy, as you can see here on the chart. So thus sort of kicked off our journey, and we began trying to find our baseline. So we already knew, generally speaking, what the conversions or the conversion rate rather was for technical wins if a deal got marked as a technical win. But we had to figure out the amount of time that it took on average for a deal to go close won after a technical win being marked. So we had to find that historical baseline, and we jumped into the CRM, which, by the way, it is going to be very helpful for all of this stuff if you have either admin access to your CRM or a close relationship with the team that manages your CRM. And we started digging into the data. After all, prediction is just informed guesses based off of historical data. And so we worked with the team internally to build a calculation between historical technical win date and close won date. And what we came out with was our time between technical win and close, which for us internally averaged somewhere around 15 days across all deals. Next, we had to filter out lost deals because we didn't really want to have those in the data set. That would just kind of complicate things. And then we had to decide how to segment the deals. So 15 days is great to just kind of use as a blanket. But if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty and have a more accurate forecast, you want to make sure that you're segmenting. So maybe you're segmenting by company size or deal size or industry or propensity to buy, which could sometimes be the SE's gut feel and other factors. There are a lot of different ways you can sort of slice and dice it to make sure you're getting the most precise time between technical and close, for your customers. An example that I use sometimes is for industries that are maybe a little bit tighter on budget, like nonprofits. Sometimes it takes more time for those sorts of deals to close. So being able to account for that in your estimation is extremely important. So what we did is we built a graph that outlined a X and a Y axis that were average time between technical win and close won, the field that we just created, and the deal size segment. And what we found was extremely interesting. And this is going to be sort of a great indicator for if you have segmented the data correctly or the best way possible. What we found is that it was a almost perfect linear line from left to right. So as deal sizes got larger, the average time between the technical win and closed won grew. Again, almost perfectly. This is obviously a representation of the graph that we built, but this is exactly the way that it looked. And so we knew that we had segmented the data correctly and we had found our baseline and that we could use that data to, somewhat efficiently and consistently predict the amount of time that it would take for a deal to go from technical win to closed won. The next step was to figure out the technical win conversion. So like I mentioned earlier, our overall technical win conversion was about 80%, but we wanted to drill in by each deal size segment. Again, in this case, we just used the size of the contract. We wanted to drill into that to figure out how technical win conversion percentages changed by segment. And so we did that as well. And that came, to be very, very helpful later down the line. And we'll get into that in just a second. So we had found our baseline. We had built sort of this pretty basic table that correlated deal size to time between technical win and closed won and technical win conversion. Next, we had to take that table or that data and match it against actual deal data. So what we did is we took all the deal data, all the active deal data from our CRM. We pulled it into a Google Sheet. You could use Excel or any other sheet, or spreadsheet editor that you want. We pulled all that data into Google Sheets, and we enriched that deal data by using the technical win date to project what the close date of that deal would be. Again, using the table from step one. And so it looked at something a little bit like this. So we were able to get a pretty good grasp of by each deal and the segment that it was in, how many days it would take to go from technical win to closed won, and the percentage conversion or the chance of it actually converting at all to a closed won deal. And this was sort of the underpinnings for the forecasting model, sort of V1 that we put together. So after we built all of this data for all the current deals in our pipeline, we were able to get to a place where we could build both a historic model as well as a future-facing model for our deals and the months that they were projected to close within. So at the bottom here, this table is sort of an example of what we ended up building with that data that we had enriched. So we organized all the deals into the months that they were expected to close within. We had what the model call was on the left. And then eventually at the end of that month, we would fill in the actual ending revenue or ARR number, and we'd calculate the accuracy ratio based off of that, and calculate our diff and the difference in ARR. And what we found was that right out of the gate, it was extremely accurate. Now, this is obviously just a visual representation of what we built, but we were finding that we were somewhere between -5 and +10 in terms of the forecasting that we were doing for each month. And obviously, you can't forecast out a really far ways with this model because it is based off of the amount of time that it takes between the technical win and a deal to go close one. But we were able to forecast out about a month at a time. And I'll get into a little bit more of that in a second, talking about maybe some of the ways that you can think about taking it to the next level and making it a little bit more accurate. But over time, we were able to iterate off of this forecasting model that started as a very small sort of proof of concept, and we got to a point where we were hitting the goals that we had set for ourselves. So after a little over a year and a half of doing this this forecasting model, we were able to get to a point where we had a 10% or lower variance for each month since using the model. So all the way going back to the beginning of using the model, from now back, like I said, a year and a half to 2 years. We had also achieved a 4% variance or less for the last 4 quarters. And lastly, we had achieved a pretty incredible 1% variance for specifically this past fiscal year for the whole year. So as you can see, as we sort of zoom out, better and better accuracy for the model. Now, I'm just going to go and walk through sort of a timeline using this fictitious company, Your Tech Systems, to show you what exactly this model looks like in action. So let's say on March 12th, Your Tech Systems comes inbound and a discovery meeting is scheduled. March 18th, you attend that discovery meeting. You collect their technical requirements. Again, a very important piece to being able to eventually flag a technical win. A demo call is scheduled at that point for March 21st. You jump on, you demo to them, and they begin a POC right away. On April 2nd, they confirm that all of their requirements have been satisfied by the testing they've done. And then on March 3rd, or on April 3rd, I should say, you mark the Your Tech Systems deal with a technical win. Now, based off of historical data, you have a pretty good sense of where that lands a deal. On the right side here, we have sort of a fictitious listing in your CRM with the close date set by the AE, the deal value, and then the deal size segment based off of the deal value, and then the technical win status that you just set on April 3rd. So what we're able to tell with the historical data is that IT consultant services businesses typically go closed won at a clip of around 76% of the time. So what we're able to tell from that is this deal with the technical win has a 76% chance of closing. Additionally, we're able to tell from the deal segment, which is segment 5, that typically we should expect a deal of this size to go close one in 33 days after the technical win. So using all of that data, we know that 33 days from April 3rd lands it in the first or second week of May, and that we're able to forecast $7,600 for May based off of that conversion rate of 76%. Now, looking at the CRM listing, the close date is currently marked to June. And this is another reason why I love the technical win forecasting system so much, is because we are then able to sort of use it as a forcing function to go and talk to the AE and say, hey, I noticed you marked the deal as a close date of June. I think looking at the forecasting model that we can close it here in May. Why do you feel that the deal is going to close in June and not May? And so that can sort of spark a good conversation between AE and SE. If for some reason the AE just sort of put the forecast date as the 11th of June without really much of a reason behind it, you can help them pull in their forecast date to something that is reasonable. Or maybe they could tell you, well, the owner or the champion for this proof of concept has told us that we're not going to get budget until June, and so that's why we're marking it as June. So again, it allows you and the AE to sort of be on the same page. Now, let's go ahead and talk about some of the implementation challenges of this approach. First off, in terms of challenges, is CRM data quality. This is something that I think we all deal with to some degree. If segmentation or deal size or other fields are wrong, either incorrectly put in or incorrect calculation is being done, then obviously that can have a pretty dramatic effect on the forecast that you're trying to make. Secondly, there will be some normal fine-tuning sort of growing pains. It'll take time to dial the model in, and the more data that you present to the model, the more accurate that it will be. But expect some potential for hallucinations in the beginning, and be patient and tweak the model as needed. Third, there is always room for anomalies in your data that or deals rather that don't fit the mold. So you always have that deal that was supposed to close 8 months ago, and it still hasn't. And that's fine. The model should be able to sort of account for that. There will always be deals that don't fit the pattern or fit the mold, so to speak. And there are some ways to sort of get around that and make sure that your model accuracy is not affected by that. And we'll get into that in just a little bit. Next, there will always be evolving or shifting averages. Averages will change over time. Maybe closing a deal in segment 5, maybe the days that it takes will go from 33 to 30 or 33 to 36. These sort of things will shift over time. Macroeconomic conditions also have a pretty massive effect on averages. And so maybe you eventually have to go back and tweak averages to match the current average that you're seeing most recently in your sales pipeline. Next, discounting. Discounting can have a pretty profound impact. Let's say if you are working a deal that is supposed to be 6 figures, but it's a school, and the model isn't accounting for the fact that there's an educational discount. This could sometimes really affect the accuracy of your forecast. So always make sure to potentially, bake discounting into your model. There's a couple ways to do that that I won't get into here, but always watch out for deep discounts on your product and how that can affect the model. Short time to close after technical win. So for example, if a bunch of deals typically close only 7 days after technical win, then you won't have a complete forecast until 7 days before the end of that month. So let's just say, like I already mentioned, a bunch of your deals, after technical win will close within 7 days. That technically means that you don't have a complete forecast until 7 days before the end of the month, which is not very helpful. It's not very helpful for sales leaders to get a perfect forecast that is only 7 days before the end of the month that you're forecasting for. So there's some ways to sort of get around that and forecast deals earlier with a little less accuracy. We'll get into that in a moment as well. And then lastly, deals closed without a technical win. I'm not sure if you do sort of self-serve trials in your organization, or if there are high volume teams that don't use SEs, which would then mean that you are not marking a technical win on a deal. But obviously, deals that are closed without a technical win have a high propensity to skew your forecasts. All right, let's talk a little bit more here about sort of taking all of this to the next level. There are sort of 4 different things that you can do to take forecasting to the next level, and then we'll wrap with some questions. So the first way to take forecasting to the next level is by tracking POP, or pull, on time, and push. This is something that you would do at the end of every month, where you'd sort of do a post-mortem on the revenue close inside of a month and matching it back to when you projected those deals to close. So for example, this specific example is for the month of May. So deals closed in May. We see here that about $95,000 have closed in May. That's great. That means that 63% of the deals that have closed, or 63% of the dollars that have closed, were expected inside of that month. We are seeing that quite a few deals have closed that were projected for earlier months. That'll obviously happen. Looks like it's right around 24% of the revenue that we closed in May is from previous months, which would be considered a push. And then it looks like there was $17,000 worth of deals that were originally forecasted for June that were pooled into the month of May. So that accounted for 11%. So it's really helpful to understand your sort of POP profile for your organization. This stuff doesn't tend to change a bunch. And so you're typically able to sort of over time track all this, maybe after 3 to 4 months. And, after those 3 to 4 months, you have a pretty clear picture of what tends to happen in your organization. Sometimes the last month of the quarter will, create a spike in the amount of pool. But it is just a really handy sort of thing to have in the back pocket to understand how your forecast is able to forecast deals that close inside the month versus deals that close outside the month that are either pooled or pushed. Next, I mentioned a little bit earlier in the presentation here about being able to forecast deals earlier. This is the method that we use for forecasting deals earlier. So like I mentioned, if you have a bunch of deals that tend to close 7 days after the technical win, then you won't be able to add that deal to your month's forecast until you mark that technical win maybe far into the month that deal was marked to close in. So what you are able to do is sort of zoom out and look at deals that are in discovery or deals that are in demo, and you're able to take these percentages to somewhat accurately measure, how many dollars you can attribute to a specific month. So in this case, we have a 10K deal that's in the demo stage. It's the very beginning of May, let's say, and you're being asked to roll up a number for your forecast. You can't wait until the middle of the month for that deal to be marked with a technical win to understand where it'll fall. But you are able to use these averages here to decide whether to attribute that money inside of May or June or a later month. The third out of the 4 ways here that you can sort of level it up. This is something that we started doing here internally at Kanji that has gone really well. That's tracking on track versus off track. This is essentially a gut field for your SEs to use, and it's able to sort of track certain things maybe a technical win can't track. So this matrix on the right here sort of gives you a good idea of how to think about it. If a deal doesn't have a technical win and the SE feels that the deal is off track for that month, then it sort of goes into that red category in the bottom left hand side. If a deal has a technical win, but the SE feels it's off track, or it doesn't have a technical win yet, but the SE feels it's on track, it puts it into that yellow category. And then if a deal has a technical win and the SE feels it is on track to close inside of that month, it goes into that upper right hand box, the green box, and that's really obviously deals that you feel very confident about closing inside that quarter. So we use this in our forecasting model as well. You can use it as well. Again, this is just another input that you can use to obtain greater accuracy for your for forecasting. And then lastly, monthly starting points. This is something that was really helpful for us. So at the beginning of every month, you already have a pretty clear picture with the technical win forecasting model for what will close inside of that coming month. Again, just based off of historic data. It also sort of gives you this 2020 vision into months where there might be a potential miss or months that are maybe high risk. So for example, look at February here. It's just shy of $40,000 going into the month, and that is made up of 8 deals. So it's much lower than the other months around it. We have a month that's 79,000, a month that's 75,000, a month that's 95,000. So we would want to surface this sort of data to sales leadership or revenue leadership, and sort of work together to figure out how we can, inside of the month of February, increase the amount of deals that we expect to close in that month. And then additionally, there are high risk months. So that's what we have outlined here in orange in April, where there is $95,000 worth of revenue tied up in only 4 deals. So if one of those deals or 2 of those deals don't close, that'll put us in a really bad spot, versus if that 95,000 was spread out across 8 deals or 10 deals. So it just creates a little bit more variability if a deal goes south. All right, so to recap here, we talked about the technical win deal forecasting model. We talked a little bit about how teams benefit from technical wins and how you can sort of gain that seat at the table where strategic revenue conversations happen. And you also have a new way to demonstrate your team's value, not by doing more work, but by maximizing the work that your team is already doing. I'd love to hear how this works for you if you decide to adopt this sort of technical win forecasting approach inside of your organization. This is not meant to be prescriptive. Definitely tweak it however you need to for your own organization. Every organization works a little bit different and has different needs. Definitely connect with me on LinkedIn and shoot me a message to tell me how it's going. And there is sort of a forecasting model template that I built. So if you are interested in that, feel free to let me know. With that, thank you for everyone here that has sort of sat through the session and listened to me drabble on. I think I'll pass it over to Kyle now and see if there's any questions.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron. Super helpful stuff. I know we were chatting about it before the session got started, but I think every leadership team is looking for ways to have more accurate forecasting. So good stuff. One other thing too, I just want to call out from the chat. Austin Mill posted this towards the end. No technical win equals more churn risk, which looking at from that perspective as well, obviously the forecasting perspective is big here, but securing that technical win obviously will make it a long time customer as well. So I love that point. We had some in the Q&A. I'm gonna start with the question I believe you addressed, but it's probably worth going back on from Maz. What was the considered start time to track the technical win to close date again?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there are a couple different ways that you're able to do that. We chose to do it based off of signature. So we started the clock, or I should say, we ended the clock at signature, and we started the technical win clock, so to speak, when the SE marked the technical win inside of the CRM. So essentially, time between the SE marking the technical win all the way to the signature of the deal.
Got it. Couple questions here too from Casey. I'd be curious on this too. Have you been able to build this model into a RevOps tool like Clary or something similar?
Yeah, that's a good question. We haven't tried to. I know you and I, Kyle, were talking earlier about sales forecasting and how it can be such a hit or miss. It really is more of an art than a science. I think if we were to sort of build this into a tool, it would be interesting to see how it perform. It probably would only perform very well for that one organization, though. So not something that would probably have a ton of shareability from one organization to the other, just because of the amount of sort of tweaking that you'll have to do to figure out how it works inside of your organization.
Yeah. And a follow-up question from Casey: how did you get through the brainstorm phase when defining what constitutes a technical win?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, like I mentioned earlier, when we initially started doing technical wins or tracking technical wins on the team, there was a fair amount of debate on the team about what constituted a technical win. And I'm a pretty firm believer that it doesn't matter what your definition is, just as long as you're super consistent about it. And really, it should be on the team to police the consistency of what a technical win is and is not. For the brainstorming phase, we have a great sales and solutions engineering team at Kanji, and so we were able to sort of all get in a room and figure out what made the most sense, and we were able to make tweaks as we went. So maybe it makes sense to get the whole team together to talk about it. But no matter what, just making sure that you're consistent is really the most important piece.
Excellent. Well, other than some what seems like some of your kanji buddies posted in the chat, I think we're good to go. If there's no other questions, I also have a survey to post here, or if I already did post it, actually, let's see. Yeah, so if you go into the survey tab, we'd encourage you to fill that out, and then I have a couple last little housekeeping items to run through as well. Feel free to ask any more questions in there as well, as we have just about 7 minutes left before we'll get kicked into the next track. Let me do this real quick though. Just want to run through a couple of quick housekeeping items. And again, thank you, Aaron. We're very excited to be bringing DemoFest on the road again as DemoFest X. I know Aaron was talking about how he attended the one in San Francisco in February, and obviously the virtual event last year as well. We're going to be heading back to London and New York City again later this year. So you can register to join us at either of those events at demofest.com or at the link in the docs tab on the right of your screen. Free to attend, obviously outside the cost of travel if you're not local. We also encourage you to stop by our expo hall to visit our premier partners of DemoFest. Remember, there is no transfer of money involved in this event, so all our partners here have gone above and beyond to contribute to making this event a success for all of you. So again, thank you all for joining us for this session, and thank you to Aaron for that valuable insight and knowledge. Up on the screen are the upcoming sessions. You will get automatically pushed to the next session in your track, and you can switch tracks or sessions by toggling to the agenda tab at the top left of your screen. But again, thank you all for joining today. And yeah, thanks again, Aaron. Awesome stuff.
Awesome. Thank you, Cal.